He had 2 strikes, and I put all the dots back on. And I'm fine now. And I just used tempera paint, little squares 5 inches apart across the whole window. And you get so used to seeing through that you don't even know that's there. But the birds can really see that. So that's my idea.
There is okay. Sue had recommended it to us, and so I thought, okay, we'll try that. And it's very simple. You just take a Q-tip and put the little dots on, and, a couple inches apart. And it was amazing because we have big windows, and you can see both sides, and they were always hitting nothing. Now, we're going to get our windows washed next week, Sue, so we'll find out. I'm going to put the dots right back on.
So maybe you need some help, huh?
There is a flyer that is about window collisions that I have out on the table. And it talks about some of the things that you can do, and this is out on the front table there about window collisions. Okay, thank you all for sharing. And Eric has an announcement that he would like to make.
Thank you, Joe. I really did see a red warbler last week, but I was in Veracruz, Mexico, so. I'll do a plug for that. But if you ever want to experience hawk migration like you've never seen before, go to Veracruz. I did it last week for the first time in my life. We were at Hawk Watch International designated sites where they have Hawk Watch centers. And one day we had 157,000 hawks fly over in one day. So they experience between 4 and 6 million migratory hawks flying over in about a 3-month period. So it was pretty amazing to witness for the first time in my life. Now that's not what I wanted to announce. I wanted to announce that I'm going to be leading a bird trip to Cuba next year, end of March, and I'm looking for people who would be interested in going. So if you're interested in going to Cuba, come talk to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I just have a couple announcements before we have Diane come up. It says, I'm sure that some of you are aware that the City of Prescott has been working on updating the city's general plan. I understand the General Plan Review Committee will be meeting November 13th to start reviewing the public comments on the plan. Several people that are on the Conservation Committee are urging everyone to take the time to look at the general plan online and post comments, positive and negative, especially in the areas of wildlife, connectivity, and dark skies. The dark sky, glare, and lighting section is missing references to the needs of migrating birds. So look for an article in the November Prescott Audubon newsletter with a bit more information. And the comment period does extend through the 21st, but from the schedule I saw in the paper, the committee will start looking at the comments on November 13th. And also, just a note that the speakers for the November 12th program, The Window on Nature, will be Joanne Ellers and Walt Anderson, and they'll be speaking about the citizen action for wildlife. Okay? So, now on to the main event. We are pleased and honored to have Diane Iverson speaking to us tonight. Diane and Doug moved to Prescott 28 years ago and began attending Prescott Audubon shortly after as beginning birders. They credit Roy and Barb Hauser, Bonnie Pranter, and Carl Tomoff as those who helped them along the way, and Sue Drown for endless help in the last few years. Diane has written and or illustrated over 20 books, primarily children's picture books about nature. She has painted nature murals for the Highlands Center for Natural History, and I'm sure most of you have seen her spectacular mural at the Lookout. Her work will be exhibited here at the NHI Gallery beginning October the 25th, and the exhibit will run through January 4th. Diane states, I love this, birding has been a great joy, and I hope that is reflected in my art. Please welcome Diane.
Thank you. First, I want to mention I've got a couple of pieces over here, and for you to look at your leisure later. a little sampling of what the exhibit will be like. Starts on October 25th. And most of the pieces in that exhibit are color pencil, which is my primary medium when someone doesn't force me into an acrylic wall. Yes. So please do come on the 25th if you want the wine and the food, or you can come anywhere between then and January 4th if you just want to peacefully look at artwork. That's the way that goes. Okay.
We have a lot of sunflowers here, and this was a really good sunflower year because not that we had so much monsoon rain, but it was spaced out nicely, and the sunflowers really liked it. And one thing I do in a lot of different pieces that you wouldn't say it looked exactly natural. I'm going to try this. There's a little spotlight thing here. Oops, I didn't mean to get that. Yeah, it doesn't work. I have seen the blue grosbeak in the sunflowers, especially when they're getting ripe, and you often see the lesser goldfinches there and monarchs, and if you look closely, you might find a ladybird beetle in there, and you might see a grasshopper, and one of the things I like to do in my work is to tuck
things in where you might not see them. But all of them are things I have seen in the sunflowers, so it's accurate, but they might not be that close together partying with one another. Doug and I spent about 7 months at Hart Prairie, which is a nature conservancy site near Flagstaff, kind of below the ski slope, as their host and hostess for 1 year. It's not a paid position, but you get a cabin, and sometimes people visit on the weekends, but all of the rest of the time for those 7 months, you and the custodian have the entire 300 and some acres to yourselves. And so I decided at the beginning of the season that I would go out into the meadow every day and see what wildflowers were blooming. So this is another example of the same sort of thing. During the time we were there, all of these different wildflowers were in the Hart Prairie, but not at the same time, and not that close together. But that's my fantasy about when I go to heaven, this is what it's going to look like. That little flower at the bottom, tiny white thing, very, very small, and it's called Northern Fairy Candelabra. And so if you could picture a fairy about this big, it would be big enough to be its candelabra. So just fun. I enjoyed the details of nature, not just birds. So I really like to kind of go wandering around looking for things, and that is why sometimes when we have gone birding and we're supposed to be looking for birds, Doug has called me a bobblehead birder because look at that flower. Oh, and I can't help it because all that stuff is out there, but mostly I'm there for the birds, and I try not to yell and scare them away, but there are other things like these gorgeous leaves, so I have to see all of it. But birds are the main thing. The green-tailed towhee was taken at Hart Prairie, and I just love that position. It's the only time I've ever seen one with its tail kind of fanned out like that, and I thought it looked pretty cool. And the other little guy, if you look at him, he is on bridal titmouse, but he is on the, what is the big... Hello, what kind of flower is that? Anyway, they had bloomed primrose. It's the hooker primrose, the very tall one. And most of the blooms were gone, but they were poking their little bills into the seed head where the blooms had been, and I don't know if they were getting seeds or getting critters or what they were, but there were about 20 birds, lesser goldfinches and bridal titmice, and an orange-crowned warbler, and they were all in there. So busy doing that that they didn't care how close we got to photograph. So I like it when birds are that way. So away from Flagstaff and now to Prescott. Again, sunflower. And we live walking distance from Willow Lake. It takes us about 8 minutes from our front door to the trail around the lake. We never, well, we do occasionally, twice a year maybe, walk to the lake. But if you're carrying a scope and binoculars and a couple of cameras, it's really more ideal to take the car. So that's what we do. So these next few pictures are just the critters we see around the lake. And you can see, look how intense that focus is. He's hungry. Doug says we've lived next to Willow Lake for about 7 years now, and we've seen 214 species of birds around the lake. And the thing that should impress you is that we are not really good birders. So if, we are birders who have to call people like Sue or Eric or Walt and say, look at this photograph I'm sending you and tell me what it is. So, but the longer we do it, the better we get at it. And that's one of the gifts of birding, that it becomes easier as you go along. But just an awful lot of wonderful things. All of these at Willow. And this tree, a willow tree that's in the Cottonwood Peninsula, I have wanted to draw since we moved here, and I still will. And I'm so glad I took this picture of it, because 3 or 4 of the branches have broken over the years. And it doesn't look this elegant anymore, but I see all kinds of things in it. And I can just, in my mind, picture a coyote peeking out from behind it. You see the coyote? Yeah, okay.
And we have seen coyotes right out in the meadow, sort of grassy space, just out on the edge of the peninsula. So, and all of this also from the lake. There's just an awful lot there, and it's. I think of it as treasure hunting, because there's no guarantee what you're going to see when you go out. But you'll always see something, and it's always going to be just wonderful. And so it's an adventure every time. It's never the same. So I come back with that stuff. For those two. But I like doing the cactus wren in this piece because we saw it on a hike in Madera Canyon. There were sycamore trees and there were grapevines winding down from them, and there was the cactus wren. And every picture I've ever seen done by another artist, the cactus wren is in a cactus. I'm a contrarian, and so I thought it would be fun to say, well, yeah, but they do fly, and there are other things in their habitat, so this is one of those things. So, and the great blue heron actually Doug took that photograph at Fain Lake. The bird was so close to us that he had on a large lens, and that was all of the bird he could get. And he was very kind of upset because it was a beautiful pose. And I said, that looks real to me. I'll go with that. So we're always looking for these kinds of things, and what will end up sometime in a painting, a colored lizard, who knows. This piece, you can see right over there. And there is the one with all of the flowers again. So just some samples. Orange-crowned warbler, if that's not clear in this picture. It looks a little darker than it actually is, but Colored pencil is a very, very slow medium, but I want to tell you that the clouds in this bald eagle piece, I sharpened about 3 pencils until they were almost gone, and I had a big pile of shavings in 3 colors. And I did that like you were doing finger paint in kindergarten, and rubbed those into the paper to make the clouds. So there are 2 colors of blue and a very blue-gray, and that's all. Just finger paint day for Diane kind of thing with color pencils. So if you ever use color pencils, just try that. Smudging, like that, you know. Okay, so I want to take you to some other places where we've explored. Ohio has what is called America's biggest week in birding. I don't know if it's the biggest week because it's actually 10 days, or if it's the biggest week because there is an incredible number of warblers. It is just warbler intense, and it was very exciting to be there. We've gone, I think, 3 times now. I could go every year if Doug would go along, you know. He wants to see other places, but McGee Marsh is one of the places there, and it has a boardwalk through this marshy area along the, what lake is that, Eric? Erie.
No.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, so it's right on the coast, what used to be called the Great Black Swamp, because it was all swampy stuff on the verge of the lake, and so this boardwalk goes through there, and the warblers stop and sit on the rail and smile and wave at you, and you know, they're just very friendly warblers, and there are other things there as well. So it's just a very exciting place. If you've never been, I highly recommend it, and I tell you, you need to sign up as soon as you can. It's in one of the state parks, and the lodge there fills up really, really fast, so you've got to do that way ahead of time. So here are a couple of drawings from that. The white-throated sparrow, I don't know what it is, but I think these are just the cutest. They're just such crisp little elegant sparrows, and he was down in the marshy water stuff with these logs, and there were the little violets and, you know, flowers blooming, and it was this exquisite little setting. And here's this guy hopping around thinking he can get away without me seeing him, which didn't happen. And so an opportunity to put the flowers together with the birds, a fun thing. Song sparrow, kind of an ordinary thing. I mean, I guess a lot of us think of them as kind of ordinary, but a dried milkweed pod, and it's just monochromatic, you know. It's just something that a whole lot of people wouldn't have seen the bird because everything was the same color, but it started singing, and, you know, we were obviously looking for birds, so I just had fun doing that piece. And this is a black-throated blue warbler, and of course the redbud trees are blooming back there, and there's just so much color, and dogwoods are blooming, and it's a wonderful time. So this is a piece that I drew and donated to the Black Swamp Bird Observatory they've been doing some building and some classrooms and some things to help them along their way. Then on to Florida. A lot of, not all birds, you see, that's the bobblehead part of me. I say, yeah, those birds are really nice, but look at that alligator. And I had never before seen a gray-headed swamp hen. So that was a new thing for me. And they were displaying and competing with one another for the fair ladies. And so I thought that was really interesting. Look at these two up, and they are like this, you know, they're just trying to make themselves as big as they can and say, back off, Buster, she's mine. And this one running at the other one, and they run and bang into each other, and or skip and go around. It was just the most interesting thing to watch. So here are a couple of drawings from Florida, and I'm trying to think of the name of the warbler, not warbler, sparrow in the pine forest there. That's really kind of rare.
The botanist word?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And so I have this habit of drawing something for a guide to put him under pressure to find it for me. So I gift him the drawing, and it's a guilt manipulation. But in this case, I didn't do the drawing until afterward, and I mailed it to his parents because he lives in Peru. At any rate, yeah, I have been down there, and we'll see that in a minute. But the purple gallinule was eating, the plant it is on is called fire flag or alligator flag. And I don't know why the two names, but two common names. And we were in Wakotahachie, and he was so busy eating the little flower buds that I was leaning on the rail, and I could have touched him. He was that close, but he didn't care about me. He was busy on this stuff. And sometimes he would flip completely over, because you can see that's a real precarious balance, that little skinny thing he's on, to lean out then from there and get flowers. But he was just, when he spread his wings this way, that just seemed elegant to me. And look at those feet. Their feet are just so interesting. So, on to Alaska, because there are places to go and things to see. So here are some of the critters we saw in Alaska, and as I have read, redpolls are all now redpolls. They are different kinds of redpolls, so that was good because I didn't have to figure out which one I had. But here is the blue throat. One of Doug's 20 or so photographs, and he is in a picture over there. He is in a willow shrub because we were far enough north there weren't any trees there. And he popped up and sang for us. And that was the guilt manipulation trip, because I gave a drawing of the blue throat, not this one, but another one, to the guide, and said, this is the bird I want, this is my target bird, here is your drawing. Find it. So, other things though, the boreal owl was in a little box in somebody's yard in the city. So, you know, wonderful things, and you never know where you're going to see them. Look at the muskox. And if you can see little spots on his hair, those are mosquitoes. There were thousands of mosquitoes on him. I don't know if they could get all the way through all of that, but it was very mosquito-ish there. And they...
Where was that picture? Where?
Out of Nome.
Okay.
So I did... the willow ptarmigan, and that picture is a little dark on the screen, not so much so, and you can compare this one to the actual original over there, but I had fun when I got home taking photographs and creating the drawings. On to Hawaii. I know red jungle fowl is not a native Hawaiian bird, but they're all over the place and they're wild now. And the thing I think about when I look at this is that if you were in the country where it was native, and you were out somewhere and you saw something that way and you didn't think it looks just like Grandpa's in the chicken coop, you know, that is an elegant bird. That is a spectacularly elegant bird, and we are just used to them. They look so common. So I threw him in there because I didn't want him to be insulted. The little Japanese white-eye, another import. and the white-rumped shama on the far side. Those two birds, the white-eye and the shama, were brought, one from Japan, it's Japanese white-eye, and one from Southeast Asia, I think is where the shama comes from, because they're beautiful songbirds, and people caged them, and they literally brought them with them to the Hawaiian Islands, and so now they're wild there. And the Cornell magazine this month had an article on caged birds that people actually in Asia, I think it was, compete, bring their birds in their cages and compete, and they had a photograph of the white-rumped shama. Ours was wild, sitting out in the tree, and he was in the same tree every day for 2 weeks and sang to me each time. So I went and visited him every day.
What island were you
We were on Kauai. Thank you. See, I'm 74. I'm at that age where I need memory recall assistance. So that's your job now. So the Pacific, golden plover, he was just coming into his plumage. So he wasn't all black on the front, but he was getting there. And they were all over the lawns in the condo areas, so like you couldn't miss seeing one. And the Japanese white-eyes were in the hibiscus and up in every tree, they were everywhere. So I have a sense of humor. I decided I would like to have a regal rooster, and so I put him in a really fancy frame. I don't want his feelings to be hurt because he doesn't really belong there. And here is the Japanese white-eye where I first saw it in a yellow hibiscus, and I thought that made a good combination. He kind of peeks out and you don't really see a lot of him, but fun for me. Mexico with Micah Rigner and Eric. Do you remember that, Eric? We had a lot of fun together, and this was as COVID was getting better, but Field Guides was not back to doing trips, so Micah, Eric, and Doug and I went to Mexico together. So these are some of the treasures we found, and I really liked the black-throated magpie jays. They were just neat-looking birds. So I wanted to do a picture of that. And I liked the little town. We were staying in a colonial village sort of place, so I was going around photographing flowers and fence posts and things like that. And I guess a story that best explains how I do that is Doug took an absolute elegant picture once for me in California of a red-tailed hawk flying. But it was flying over the Orange County dump. And I knew that nobody would buy it if I painted it over the Orange County dump, you know? So we went up into the Sierras where there were red-tailed hawks, a nice area, and photographed some lovely mountains, and I put my red-tailed hawk above that. So if you're the artist, you can do that. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
That's right. Okay. So, they were all over trees, fences, in the yards, everywhere, the black-throated magpie jays, and this is where I put him, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And then the five-striped sparrow on Ocotillo, also a lot of fun. I put Doug in here since he's not with us tonight, so there he is monkeying around. And we were on a little boat tour, and they stopped the boat near a place with a whole lot of trees right near the edge and started peeling bananas. And of course, they do this for every trip they take. And pretty soon we had about 7 monkeys in the boat on everyone's head and shoulder and wherever. And so here is Doug with a monkey brain and then a howler monkey next. I really like the malachite butterflies, these green and brown butterflies. I thought they were pretty. They are in one of the pictures. Doesn't he blend right in with the leaves? The green in his wings is the same as the green of the leaf, and so It's not, no. And Gildani. Okay, this is the most important slide I have. Of course, the crocodile they brought on the boat tour by taking the skin off a piece of chicken and putting it on a long stick and flapping it in the water a couple of times. And they said, please don't hang your hands over the boat, which we didn't. And he came up all the way out of the water, snatched that skin and went back under again. I thought that would make a lovely painting, but who would buy it? So I had fun with all of these, but that little girl, oops, let's see if I can go back, yes. That little girl is Annalisa. She is our granddaughter, and she's a senior in high school this year. And she has a little mosquito coast tree frog, which is not poisonous, and that's why I'm kissing it. See, I'm kissing the frog. You notice that? This is a life lesson for Annalisa. No, it will not turn into a prince. Nobody's going to save you. Get an education. Okay, so she was having fun with it, but hopefully it's stuck. We'll see. So far, yeah, she's not even dating. It must have taken, right? So this is one I did from Costa Rica, and I have another really large piece that is acrylic. I just finished, and so it isn't in this, so you have to come to the exhibit to see it. It is the main piece of the exhibit, and it has like about 12 different species in it. So it's the main thing. But I really like hummingbirds, and putting them together with any kind of pretty flower is a fun thing for me. Peru. We went on a wonderful trip to Peru with the Rigners. And if any of you know Mark and Veronica, and both of them have taught at local colleges. And so we went with Veronica to this clay lake place where all of these birds come in, and then out to an island where the Inca terns were, and on the way out there we saw the caimans. All of these butterflies were just on a bank along the Amazon River. So as you're pulling up to, when you're way out in the middle of nowhere in the Amazon, to hike some steps up to some raised cabins where they tell you not to go out at night, or the big cats will eat you and stuff. Just make sure you don't have to go to the bathroom at night. That's the rule. So lots of butterflies just on the mud banks of the rivers, which was exciting for me because they're as pretty as birds. We photographed the American oyster catcher, and when we took the boat out to see the other things on the island, this was at the shore. And they're odd-looking birds, but I think they're really just neat. Look at that bill, and the eye is red too, and the pink feet, and I don't know. There's something about it that's just kind of bold and sassy. This is the way I look. If you don't like it, that kind of thing. So all of that comes together to create a beautiful world, and over, what I think is that if we love it, we ought to be taking care of it because it needs our help. So that's our last picture. No, it isn't our last picture. This is our last picture. I just want to remind all of you, these postcards are over on the counter there where the cookies are. So you can look like you're not really trying to clean the cookie plate by just sort of grabbing for the postcard and doing a side thing onto the cookies. And I brought peanut brittle because my grandpa liked it. So anyway, this is the title of the show. It's up October 25th through January 4th. October 25th is the fourth Friday, and so it's the art walk, and that is when the reception is. So if you want food with your art, that's the day you need to come. If you want to come in here and not have anyone bother you and just look at stuff, then any of the other days. But once again, And another beautiful thing out in our world. So thank you for indulging me, and have a good evening. Are there any questions?
You take the photographs,
Mhm.
and then how do you decide, and how long does it take to do a composite of, these flowers and that bird or that? How do you figure out the composition, and then how long does it take to do it?
It's generally me saying to Doug, take that branch. See that hole in that tree right there? That's the right size for a, for a nuthatch or for a western screech owl or whatever, and I want to put it in that tree. So he's, yes, dear, and does that. And he's really, really a partner in everything I do. He's an artist himself in his photographs, and so I'm able to use that. But I enjoy the research, so I like to read about, so what does this bird eat? What time of the year is it here, and when is it there? And Walt helped me. This will be a good example. Walt helped me several years ago. I did a piece that was, it's a blank. It's one of those peregrine type, the little one. Kestrel. See, I told you, it's going. I was doing a pair of kestrels, and I like old gnarly fence posts. Again, Doug says he's glad I like old gnarly things. So it took you a while to catch that. So I had the fence post, and I had his photographs of the birds. We had done all of that, but I wanted something more in the picture. So I thought some kind of wildflower growing up from the bottom of around the fence post. So I decided, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to put some sunflowers in there because they're tall. And so I talked to Walt about it, and he said, well, the male and the female are only really together, when they're courting and stuff in the spring and early summer. So sunflowers bloom later. So if you put sunflowers, they're not going to be together. So I had to take the sanded eraser, which is something you have for colored pencil, and get rid of all of the sunflowers and put a spring blooming flower. So the moral of that story is call your friends who know what they're doing earlier. So that's how I learn stuff, and also how I learned to do all the research first and then put that stuff together.
And then how long does it take to actually produce the
Oh,
picture?
a long time. It's slow. A color pencil is a really slow medium because it builds up in layers, and you work from light to dark, much like you would with watercolor, only very slowly. Because you're putting it all on in pencil strokes. So something like this piece with the sunflowers here might take me about 50 hours.
Wow. Okay. Do you work on one thing at a time, or do you
No.
Okay.
I'm a little schizophrenic in my artwork. That bothers Doug too. Yeah, just like I can read 3 books at a time. But, it's a different way that your brain is wired. So, but I would say that I enjoy the research part of it as much as I enjoy the drawing. And it helps me to learn so much about nature. What kind of flower what should be in this picture, whatever. So, yeah, a lot of research to make it accurate. Yeah.
Diane, did you have like an art degree, or did you just teach yourself?
No, I say I went to, well, I had about a year's worth of college art classes, no degree, and I say I went to the throw it in the trash can school of art because I just kept making mistakes until something turned out right and I figured I had graduated. Any other questions? Yes?
You live near Willow Lake,
Uh-huh.
and you enjoy birding there.
Yes.
And Willow and Watson were an Audubon event. Those are an Audubon important bird area.
Yes, they are.
So I'm wondering, as a birder, have you intentionally, when planning travels in the Southwest or elsewhere, do you look at the IBA network and try to target important bird areas?
Yes.
And are there ones in Arizona that you haven't been to that are on your bucket list?
We've been to most of them. We've lived in Arizona for 28 years, so we actually traveled this whole area, the Four Corners area, actually, on our honeymoon. So we have been looking at birding sites in Prescott before we knew we were birders. One of the first things we did was go to Russell Dirkson's Sparrow Workshop.
Oh my God.
And oh my gosh, it's a wonder we ever became birders because it was, he had a different hat for every sparrow, so white-crowned sparrow, you put on a hat with, you know, so, yeah, we've been doing it a long time, and I can't think of a place we haven't been to yet, but you know, the thing about Auduboners is we went on one trip that we went to a prison, a pond in front of a prison, a cemetery, and a water treatment plant. And it was one of the best days of our lives. So this is it's a birders thing, and other people wouldn't understand if they want to go to like pretty places, but we go wherever the birds are, it's fun. So I'm sure there is one out there somewhere, but we just haven't
Hasn't been designated.
hasn't been designated, or I haven't discovered it yet. Any other questions? Think we're done? Okay, thank you very much. Please